Fox News is up in arms. It's all over Twitter. It's everywhere. People weren't happy that slaves were being freed. Abraham Lincoln responded to, one of the articles written about him. Hey everybody, this is Nady from Freedom Psychotherapy and Wellness Services, and I wanted to make a video for you guys about one of my favorite holidays coming up this month, and that is Juneteenth. So Juneteenth is a Texas state holiday, so if you're not from Texas or you live somewhere in the world or the US, you might not know about it, but it is a state holiday, and I mean, Texas is where I live, where I'm licensed, and where I'm from.
Texas up in this thing, put you up on this game.
Maybe you'll find it interesting. Juneteenth is the day, or AKA Emancipation Day, is the day on June 19th. This is the day in 1865 when slaves in Texas were freed. What's interesting about this is that if you live in the US, you probably learned in school that in 1863, 2 years prior, when Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, that's when slaves were freed. Wrong. So here's the history lesson. On June 19th, 1865, a Union General, Gordon Granger, rode federal troops into Galveston, Texas to announce that the Civil War had ended and slaves were freed. Approximately 250,000 Texan slaves had no idea that their freedom had been secured by the government. The reason why for 2 years that slaves didn't know they were freed is because when the executive order was signed, it meant for the immediate freedom of all slaves throughout the entire country. They were in the midst of a civil war. So those states that had seceded from the Union, aka Confederate states, didn't adhere to the proclamation. Slaves in those states remained unfree. I'm sharing this today because a lot of history in the United States around Black folks is still unknown and not widely talked about. And I know that a lot of my friends and people that I knew didn't know what the origins of Juneteenth were. Plenty of other history about Black folks, period, that we don't know. So that's really why I'm sharing. Even if you're Black and even if you grew up in Texas, maybe there's still some things that you don't know. So I encourage you, wherever you're from, to research the history of your people in that place. So next bit, something they do teach us in school. Something they do teach us in school is that Abraham Lincoln was like the good president. And at least that's how I remember it. I remember it like, he was the good one. And he wanted to free the slaves. He was this anti-slavery dude or whatever. When the executive order was signed, there were articles written about the Emancipation Proclamation because people weren't happy. People weren't happy that slaves were being freed. So you could probably equate it to, something goes down in the government. Fox News is up in arms. It's all over Twitter. It's everywhere. So people were talking about it and writing articles even then. And so in one response that Abraham Lincoln responded to, one of the articles written about him, and he justified why he would sign an order that would free slaves. He stated that it was all to save the Union. He didn't have any particular cares or anything for the colored race. It was really all for the betterment of the Union. So that's to say there were political motives behind our freedom, so that racism is systematic or systemic, whatever word you want to use, but it is in all systems. It did not begin because of skin tone. Racism really began because it was what was most profitable. And they, whoever they are, marketed racism because they thought that that's what would selling people. So to get people comfortable with buying humans, the concept of these savages are less than us and they need us and blah, blah, blah was created and thusly entrenched into our systems. Don't believe me? Look it up. You can look it up. You don't have to believe me. I digress. So guess when Juneteenth finally became a state holiday here in Texas? Pause this video real quick. Pause the video and drop a guess in the comments of what year you think that Juneteenth became a state holiday. I'll wait. This is me waiting. 1980, bro, like 1980, like 40 years ago, right? Y'all do that math. I'm a therapist. But I think it was 40 years ago, younger than your dad, is when Emancipation Day became a state holiday. Banks don't close, but it's a holiday. You know, systematic. Another fun fact for Houstonians, or if you care about, you know, a little bit of history here where I live, in the 1870s, a group of former slaves pooled a bunch of money together from donations from churches, and they got together about $800 to buy 10 acres of land that will become what is now Emancipation Park. And their intention was to have it to celebrate future Emancipation Day celebrations, which is exactly what it's for now. And it's really cool now. It's really beautiful. Emancipation Park is right off of 288 and Elgin on, of course, Emancipation Avenue, out here in Houston. And I can't remember, I was gonna throw up some pictures, but I haven't been there in a couple years, so I don't know if it looks like this now or if these were just plans that they had to beautify it or whatever, but still really cool nevertheless. I have a personal love for Juneteenth because I grew up going back to my mother's hometown with my parents of Tyler, Texas. Shout out to East Texas. But we would go back every year for Juneteenth because they would have a parade, and we would walk from my grandmother's house to MLK Boulevard and watch the parade. And my father's even done up some old vintage cars so that he could also be in the parade himself. Iconic. So it is a holiday that's really close to my heart, and it means a lot to me because of you know, my own history and what I know about my family on both sides, our history of, you know, being freed slaves and stuff like that. I have a lot of super American type of history that but only begins right after slavery. Maybe I can tell you a little bit about where, for example, my name comes from, Nady, stuff like that. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something. If you learned something, give it a thumbs up, double tap it, share it with somebody who doesn't know about this super fun holiday, one of my favies. And let's celebrate together and continue the fight to dismantle systematic racism. Hashtag Black Therapists Matter. No, redo.